This happened when I was 12 years old back in 2009. At that age, I was stuck in that middle ground. Some of my friends thought trick-or-treating was too childish, while others still loved it. Personally, I wasn't ready to give it up. Halloween was my favorite night of the year, and there was no way I was just going to sit at home while everyone else was out having fun. That year, my parents finally trusted me to go out without an adult, as long as I stuck with my friends. We all lived in the same neighborhood, and it wasn't considered a bad area, so they figured it was safe enough. The rules were simple. Stick together, don't cross Main Street, and be back by 10. It ended up being me, my best friend Jacob, and our neighbor Emily. We'd been hyped about this night for weeks. We didn't even bother with those little plastic pumpkin buckets. We brought pillowcases because we were serious about stacking up as much candy as possible. The night started off perfect. It was one of those crisp fall evenings where the air was cool but not freezing. Leaves crunched under our sneakers as we walked from house to house. Almost every porch was decorated with jack-o'-lanterns, fake spiderwebs, or skeletons sitting in chairs. Some people had gone all out, with flashing lights and creepy music blasting from hidden speakers. I still remember one house where a guy dressed as a scarecrow sat completely still on a bale of hay, and when kids walked by, he'd suddenly jump up and scare the life out of them. We were laughing so hard we almost dropped our bags. By about 9 o'clock, our bags were heavy and the streets were a lot quieter. Most of the younger kids had already gone home, and you could tell the night was winding down. That's when we decided to hit a couple more houses before calling it. We were 3 blocks from my house, heading down a street with only a few houses still lit up. At the very end of the block, under a streetlight, there was a man standing beside a van. The van looked old, a little beat up with paint peeling on the side. The sliding door was cracked open like it hadn't been closed all the way. The man was holding a big plastic bag, the kind you'd get at Walmart, and it looked stuffed. At first I thought he might be a dad waiting for his kid, or maybe someone giving out candy from their car. But then he called out, "Hey, want some extra candy? I bought too much." His voice carried down the street. The 3 of us stopped. Jacob gave this half laugh like he wasn't sure if it was a joke and said, "We're good." But the man waved the bag and stepped forward a little, saying he got the good stuff. Full-size bars, Reese's, Snickers, and told us to come grab some before he threw it out. Right away, something about it felt wrong. He wasn't wearing a costume. He didn't have kids with him. And the way he emphasized "come grab some" felt rehearsed, almost like a trap. Emily whispered, "Nope, let's just go." But Jacob, being Jacob, hesitated. He whispered back, "What if he really does have full-size bars?" and took a tiny step forward. I grabbed his sleeve and pulled him back. The man noticed and smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that makes you feel safe. His teeth looked yellow in the streetlight. His eyes darted between us like he was waiting for someone to take the bait. "Don't be scared," he said smoothly. "I'm just sharing. Look." He reached into the bag and pulled out a candy bar, holding it up high. But the way he leaned forward, arm stretched out, bag clutched tight, it felt exactly like bait on a hook. I don't know what came over me, but every instinct in my body screamed that this was wrong. Without thinking, I just shouted, "We gotta go." I yanked Jacob's arm and the 3 of us bolted. The man's tone changed instantly. His voice turned sharp, almost angry. "Hey, come back here." And then I heard it. His footsteps crunching on the pavement, chasing after us. My heart was slamming in my chest so hard it hurt. I didn't dare look back at first. We just ran, cutting across the street and down another block. Our pillowcases thudding against our legs as the candy shifted inside. Finally, I risked a glance. He had stopped near the corner, still holding the bag, standing there under the streetlight, watching us. We didn't stop running until we saw a house with people still outside handing out candy. There were a couple of parents on the porch, talking and laughing while their kids went through their haul. We rushed up, out of breath, and tried to act like we were just more trick-or-treaters. But when I turned around, he was still at the far end of the street, just staring. Emily blurted out, "There's a man trying to give us candy from his car." The parents looked at us, then looked past us down the street. The man was gone, the van was gone too. They didn't brush it off. One of them pulled out their phone immediately and called the cops. We sat on the porch, shaking and trying to explain what happened. The dad asked us to describe him. The van, the bag, what he said. We did our best, but my memory was already fuzzy from how fast everything happened. Within 10 minutes, a police car rolled up. They took us seriously, which surprised me. They asked the same questions again, wrote everything down, then cruised the area looking for a van matching our description. My mom showed up not long after, furious and scared at the same time. I could tell she wanted to yell at me for being out that late, but mostly she just hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Emily's parents came to get her, and Jacob's dad arrived too. Later that night, my mom told me the police hadn't found the van. No one else had reported seeing him. It was like he just vanished after we ran. The weirdest part was the officer said this wasn't unusual. He said Halloween is one of the easiest nights for predators to blend in, because there are so many people outside, and kids are already excited about candy. He told us point blank, "You kids did the right thing. Never go near someone offering you candy from anywhere but a house." That conversation stuck with me. I realized how close we had come to being a headline in the paper, or a story people whispered about for years. After that, Halloween trick-or-treating never felt the same. I still went once or twice in the following years, but I couldn't enjoy it the way I used to. Every time I saw a stranger on the street, even if they were just walking their dog, I felt that same cold knot in my stomach. Now, as an adult, whenever Halloween comes around and I see kids running from house to house, laughing with their friends, I feel both happy and nervous. Happy because it reminds me of being young, but nervous because I know how quickly a fun night can turn into something dangerous. This happened when I was 18. My parents had gone out of town for the weekend to visit my aunt. My little sister was at her friend's house for a sleepover, and I had the whole house to myself. It was one of those normal family houses in a quiet subdivision. 2 stories, small yard, front porch with a swing my mom loved, and a backyard with a rickety shed we never used. I liked being alone sometimes. I could blast music, leave dishes in the sink, and eat cereal at midnight without anyone judging. I worked part-time at a grocery store, so I was used to late nights and quiet mornings. That Saturday, I'd spent the day doing boring stuff, mowing the front lawn, fixing a loose knob on the bathroom door, and running to the store for more candy, because my mom insisted on being generous for Halloween. She always said, "If kids come, give them something good." So I grabbed a big tub of mixed candy and set it on the table by the front door, along with a couple of extra chocolate bars in case anyone wanted them. I even put out a small plastic pumpkin on the porch because my mom would have yelled if we left it bare. The neighborhood was doing its usual Halloween thing. Earlier that evening, it had been loud and crowded. Kids, music, people leaning on porches. But by the time it got late, around 10, everything thinned out. Most houses turned their lights off. The street lamps threw long orange pools down the block. My parents had left that afternoon, and the house felt different without them. Emptier, quieter. That alone put me on edge a little, but I told myself I was being dramatic. I had the whole couch, Netflix, and a mountain of candy. What could go wrong? Around 10:30, I was dozing on the couch with my phone in my hand, half watching a stupid horror movie just to be ironic. I had the porch light on and the front door locked. The wind picked up and left a little pile of leaves against the step. My phone buzzed, a text from my sister saying she was staying over, "Have fun, love you." I smiled, put my phone down, and fell into this light, cozy, sleepy feeling. Then the doorbell rang. Not a normal quick ding, but that long, annoying buzz our old doorbell does when someone holds it down. I groaned, rubbed my eyes, and checked the clock. 11:07. Seriously? Who even rings a doorbell that late? I figured maybe it was just some kids messing around, so I dragged myself over to the door and peeked through the peephole. Standing on the porch was a clown. Not a friendly birthday clown. It was one of those cheap rubber masks. Pale face, painted bright smile way too wide. Matted hair that looked fake. He had on a dark hoodie and jeans, and in his hand he held a pillowcase like he was expecting candy. The porch light threw his shadow long across the steps. For a second I just stared like my brain hadn't caught up. "Trick or treat," he said. Not shout, not even a real voice. I'm more like a flat sound through the mask. I laughed this nervous laugh and said, "Dude, it's late. We ran out an hour ago." I kept the door cracked because I wasn't about to open up to the street at that hour. He didn't move, just stood there looking through the peephole. I shut the door and locked it. My hands were a little shaky, but I told myself to chill. It's Halloween. People do dumb stuff. Not 2 minutes later, the doorbell rang again. I froze. I didn't open the door this time. I pulled back the curtain and saw him on the sidewalk this time, still holding the pillowcase. He raised his arm like he was offering it, then turned and walked away. I watched him a second, then the shape moved across the neighbor's yard and disappeared down the street. I texted my sister asking if her friends were messing with me and got a laughing emoji back. I shrugged it off and went back to the couch, but the hair on my arms hadn't settled. I checked the locks, locked the back door, and double-checked the deadbolt. I walked around the house making stupid little gestures like I was on a checklist. Front door locked, back door locked, windows latched. I stood at the kitchen sink with my coffee and tried to laugh off how dumb I felt for being scared of a guy in a costume. Around midnight, I heard something at the back of the house. That metallic jingle the sliding glass door makes when someone runs their hand along the handle. My first thought was someone messing around. Then I remembered the clown at the front and my stomach dropped. I crept to the window and peered out. The backyard was dark and empty, but the shed gate was slightly open. I closed the blinds and dialed 911, whispering into the phone about the guy in a clown mask earlier. The operator told me patrol cars were nearby and would check the area. I waited, sitting on the floor with my back to the couch, phone clenched. The silence was heavy. I started to feel stupid, like I'd called over nothing, until I heard glass break in the kitchen. It made my ribs hollow out. My hands moved before I could think, and a quick, sharp shatter that froze me in place. Then I heard the front door open. Not the cautious kind, not loud. He let it open quietly, like someone who had practiced that move. Footsteps padded through the entry, then over hardwood, then toward the kitchen where the noise had come from. He was inside. I didn't scream. I don't know why, but I didn't. Maybe it was shock, maybe I thought silence gave me a chance. I slipped into the hallway and backed up into my bedroom. My plan was stupid but clear. Get to my room, lock the door, call my mom, hide. I shoved the heavy dresser in front of the knob because I remembered in a movie once someone did that and it felt safe. I crawled under my bed and tried to make myself as small as possible. The footsteps creaked above me. He moved through the house like he knew the layout. He was in the living room for a long time, rifling through cushions and drawers. The sound of items being shoved into a bag echoed like small gunshots. My whole body buzzed with that high, stupid fear where your skin feels too tight for you. Then something changed. I heard him laughing. Not loud, but a quiet, soft chuckle that made the hairs along my neck stand up. It didn't sound like a party laugh. It sounded like he was enjoying himself. He walked down the hall right over where my bedroom door was. For one terrifying second, I thought he was going to open it. I pressed my face into the carpet and prayed I smelled like dust. His shadow crossed the crack under the door and stopped. "Come on out," he said, muffled by the door. "I don't want to hurt anyone." My phone slipped in my hand and hit the floor. The impact made a noise and he moved. He tried the knob. He pushed. The dresser I pushed in front of the door squealed like paper. He shoved harder. The wood groaned. The knob rattled, and then the door gave. He jerked into the room like he'd expected a fight, not a kid. He was closer than I'd imagined. The smell of him was a sharp chemical stink, like old cigarettes and something metallic. He was smiling even without a real face showing, and the mask was smudged at the corners. He had the pillowcase slung over one shoulder and an actual bag of tools in his free hand. Pliers, a little pry bar, zip ties. He stepped forward casually like he'd planned this, and then, for a stupid second, he hesitated like he was deciding what to do next. That's when I made the stupidest move of my life. I lunged. I don't know how I had the energy. Maybe it was adrenaline, maybe it was pure terror. I jumped up and tried to grab his arm. He went off balance and cursed. For a second, there was this wild scuffle by the dresser. He was stronger, older. He pushed me hard and I hit my shoulder on the bed frame. Pain flared and something in me went raw. I grabbed whatever I could and slammed it into his face. The lamp, the wooden horse on my shelf. Anything. He staggered and dropped the pillowcase. Somewhere in the middle of all that, I heard shouting outside. Flashing lights swept the curtains. Someone was yelling for him to stop. I heard a car backfire and tires screech. He made a grab for the back window like he was trying to dive out, but my neighbor, Mr. Diaz across the street, who occasionally mowed his lawn at midnight, was sprinting across my yard with his flashlight in hand. He'd seen the lights and heard something and just ran. He was older but not slow, and he barreled into the guy as the man tried to climb out. The two of them hit the ground, and then suddenly there were officers everywhere. I remember looking up and seeing uniforms and flashlights and the sound of someone's radio squawking loud. The clown mask was ripped off and someone had cuffs on the intruder's wrists. He lay on the grass breathing hard, glaring up at me like I'd ruined his night. He didn't say anything coherent. Later in the police car, he muttered something about easy houses and they always leave it open. The officer said he'd been trying houses all night and had tools for breaking and things in his backpack that made it clear this wasn't random. They told me I did exactly the right thing by calling and fighting back when I could, that it was better than staying silent. They took him away. The rest of the night is a blur of statements and neighbors hovering and my parents driving back the first flight they could. The officers found my front door jimmied, the kitchen window smashed, the cushions on the couch torn apart. They dusted for prints and told me to stay with Mr. Diaz for the night. I sat on his couch with a blanket around my shoulders while he made me instant coffee and told me not to be a hero the next time. I nodded, but I felt like I'd already been left with no nuance left. He went to court a few weeks later. The judge called it attempted burglary and a bunch of other charges I don't remember. He pled guilty to several counts after the evidence, receipts, the zipper-tied tools, phone recordings, and the neighbor's testimony. They sentenced him to a few years, and I felt relieved but weirdly hollow. The reality of it being over didn't erase what happened. This happened when I was 19. I was in college and working part-time at a pizza place downtown. Halloween is always one of the busiest nights of the year, so of course I was scheduled. The shift ran late, and by the time I clocked out, it was close to midnight. I didn't have a car back then. Most nights I'd take the bus, but on Halloween the schedule was messed up and I had just missed the last one. My apartment wasn't too far, maybe a 20-minute walk, so I figured I'd just walk it. The streets were quieter than I expected. Earlier in the night when I was at work, I'd seen kids and families everywhere, costumes, candy bags, laughter. But at midnight, it was like the whole town had shut down. Just empty sidewalks, jack-o'-lanterns flickering on porches, and piles of smashed candy wrappers blowing in the wind. I put my hoodie up and started walking. At first it was fine, just the sound of my sneakers on the pavement and the occasional rustle of leaves. But a few blocks in, I noticed footsteps behind me. I slowed down, they slowed down, I sped up, they sped up. At that point I told myself it was just someone else heading the same way. It happens. I didn't want to be paranoid, so I kept going, hands in my pockets, trying to act normal. When I got to the next corner, I did this quick little move where I crossed the street without looking back just to see if they'd follow. And sure enough, when I glanced sideways, I saw him. He wasn't in a costume. Just a guy, maybe late 30s or early 40s, wearing a dark jacket. His face looked rough like stubble and deep lines, and his hair was messy. He wasn't pretending to be casual either. He was locked on me, walking steady, maybe 30 feet back. My stomach dropped. I pulled out my phone and pretended to text, hoping that would make him back off. But when I glanced down at the screen reflection, I saw him closing the distance. I shoved my phone back in my pocket and started walking faster. My apartment was still 10 minutes away and the streets were dead quiet. No cars, no people, just me and him. I cut through a side street I usually avoided at night because it was darker, but I was panicking. I thought maybe I could lose him. The second I turned the corner, I broke into a jog. Halfway down the block, I risked a look back. He was running too. That moment didn't even feel real. My chest tightened like I couldn't get enough air. I sprinted. My keys were in my pocket and I gripped them so tight they cut into my palm. When I got to my building, I was shaking so bad I could barely fit the key into the front door. I heard his footsteps pounding the sidewalk behind me, closer and closer. I yanked the door open, slammed it shut, and twisted the lock just as his shadow fell across the glass. For a second, we were face to face, only the door between us. He didn't yell, didn't try to break it down. He just leaned forward, breathing heavy, his eyes wide and unblinking, staring straight at me. Then without a word, he turned and walked off into the dark. I stood there in the lobby until my hands stopped shaking, too scared to even move. I didn't go to my apartment right away because I was afraid he might have circled around the back. I waited until I saw a neighbor come in, then went upstairs with them. The next morning, I called my manager and begged for earlier shifts. I never wanted to walk home that late again. To this day, I don't know who that man was or what would have happened if I hadn't gotten inside in time.